Ben Stiller is my fave nepo baby. And here are my thoughts on Severance without further ado. If you're new here, hello, thank you for being here. If you are from TikTok, Film Talk, also thank you for being here. I know this is not film, this is TV, but I am all caught up on Severance and I have to talk to someone about this, aka YouTube. Quick tangent, if you do want some more in-depth, nerdy, behind the scenes stuff, there are some great interviews and like scene breakdowns on YouTube of like the filmmakers and creators and actors talking about how they made this show, because it is technically like one of the tightest and like most well done shows I've ever seen. Not even gonna lie to you. I also joined, super nerdy, I joined a Reddit thread, Reddit room. I'm new to Reddit, I don't really know these things. I joined their Severance chat, which is really fun to kind of like go through and look at people's like Easter eggs and findings and things. But these are my thoughts and feelings. If you would like more in depth, that is available to you. I'm just putting that out there. Let's get into it. So just initially, it's so funny because on Apple TV Plus, I'd always sort of like seen this show and just kind of never clicked on it, never watched it. And I think that's honestly probably good because there was a 2-year gap between the seasons. So as far as right now, I'm all caught up on season 2. I'm only 2 episodes in at the time this is filmed. And I'm kind of glad because it's a very bingeable show. Definitely really, really, really fun to binge. One of my initial thoughts when I started watching it, season 1, was, oh God, this is kind of what I imagine working at HQ is like. And it's on Apple TV Plus. Like, that's kind of meta, right? I kind of felt like maybe this was like a side eye, maybe this was like a filmmaker wink to corporations. I don't know. Could be talking crazy over here. I don't know. I have some notes here that I'm going to, notes, let's be honest. These are just like my midnight ramblings in my notes app. This is nothing super official or crazy, girl. Obviously, if you're watching this, you probably watched the show, but just in case. So the premise of the show is that these employees of this company elected into having their brain severed, meaning that on the elevator, when they go to work, they forget who they are on the outside. They don't know anything about their life. Vice versa, when the innies leave and go in the elevator, they don't remember anything about their workday, who they work with, nothing. And then they go on their way and they're their outie self, okay? That's the whole premise. My first impression watching this show was it actually like completely blew all of my expectations and like my premises out of the water. I think this is such a smart commentary on, yes, like your work self and your personal life self and like how hard it is to sort of know all of the invisible rules of like what that entails while you're at work. Obviously, like, yes, I feel like that's like the surface. I really like how you start to like through each of the characters sort of like storylines, which, oh my God, they are all so good. I love John Turturro, and I honestly feel like Adam Scott like he is so deserving of like a leading man role. Like, I think he's just incredible. He's like the quick side rant. He's the type of actor where when I'm watching him, I completely believe whoever he is. Like, I forget he's acting. Like, to me, he's just the character. That speaks to his skill, like, very well. I liked how it was a commentary on, like, authority and worker autonomy and just sort of, like, all the ways that you are sort of manipulated and, I don't know if coerce is the right word, but, like, all the ways that you're manipulated and sort of, like, kept in, like, this neat little box at work. Like, there are certain things you can't talk about. Obviously, there are like 1,000,001 just sort of unspoken rules, and your manager is often acting as something else I think it does really well is like depicting how like the managers and like the boss like sort of act like there's like this sort of like friendship and there's this trust, but it's completely fabricated and it's completely insincere. Just really resonated with it. I think if you've ever worked in like startup or even like corporate culture, you know what it's like to walk that really thin line of like privacy and like unspoken boundaries. And this show just sort of exemplifies that so much and how like forced everything feels. Like for instance, there's a really great scene, no spoilers, where there's like a reward and it's like a very generic sort of reward for one of the employees. And just like, if you've watched it, you know what sequence I'm talking about with the dancing. You can feel this veneer of like forced optimism and like a false closeness and like camaraderie, if that makes sense. Like there's just so many things happening on the surface, and I think it's also symbolic of like the innie self and the outie self. Like I think there's just so much at the surface and then there's so much subtext, and that is to me like the marker of a great script, you know, whether it's a film or a TV show. Like when there is just so much not being said, I feel like that is the more powerful route. Like it's so easy to just put what you think would happen on the page or what someone would say on the page, but like what if they didn't do that? What would that sort of entail? And so something I've really enjoyed watching the interviews is understanding how the series came to be. So the creator, Dan Erickson, basically was working a series of temp jobs in LA and was wondering to himself, like, would it be so nice if I could just turn my brain off for the next 8 hours and have like no recollection of this and just go on about my day and it's over. And he was sort of like, this is a very unsettling, like kind of scary thought to have. That's crazy. And then he wrote the pilot, which then got to Ben Stiller, who got it off the ground and is one of the executive producers and directors. And I just think that like that just sort of, that really hit. I waited until I had watched all of it, like I'd completely caught up, to start watching these more in-depth interviews because I really wanted to like form an opinion before I watched it. And I definitely recommend that, like not watching videos, not like really reading anything, and just sort of like putting yourself in the show. I think that is sort of the most immersive way to be in the world. I have a lot of like granular thoughts as far as like episodes go. I don't think I want to do though like a scene or episode breakdown. Like I don't know if I want to get that in the weeds with it, because I'm kind of just like I don't know if anyone like relates to this, but I'm kind of just like enjoying like watching something and then sort of being like, okay, like I'm not gonna like rate this or like analyze it to death. I kind of just want to like sit with it, and that's kind of like where I'm at right now. Like on Letterboxd, I mean, I do rate things on Letterboxd for the most part, but sometimes like I go through these phases where I'm just like, I don't want to rate this. Like, I don't want to think about it technically. I just kind of want to like sit with it. And this show has just sort of like permeated like my brain, like literally. I mean, if you've watched the show. Hello. Okay, this is obviously editing Victoria here, but I wanted to mention something that I forgot to say in the video. This show plays on memory, obviously, so well, in a way that I haven't seen since Eternal Sunshine. That was something that struck out to me. I was like, oh, I haven't really seen or thought about this in depth since Eternal Sunshine. So just wanted to put that out there. I think there's kind of been like a trend with that. Ariana Grande's like music video for Eternal Sunshine and like the whole concept of her album, for instance. So just super interesting to see sort of like how these things like in mainstream maybe are like coming back a little bit since that film. So just wanted to share that point. Okay, bye. I've really also, so in the pursuit of finding non-evil social media apps, I have made a Blue Sky account, and actually it's like a mad dash. It reminds me of like when Twitter and Instagram first came on the scene, like doing a mad dash to see like who's on it. And I actually found Ben Stiller on there, and he shares a lot of like, I don't know if he's doing this on his other socials. I don't think I have him on any other socials. He's doing like behind the scenes pictures, he's responding to fans, he is very like interactive and like engaged, and you can tell when someone created a show or a movie as a cash grab and when they like are locked in. He is locked in. He's very passionate about this. I really respect that. And I've really been enjoying just like seeing his BTS and his comments and reactions and things like that. This is a show with like a lot of big brain stuff, you know what I mean? Like there's so much that feels like very meticulously planned and coordinated, if that makes sense. So I'm very excited to see where season 2 goes. Obviously it's leaving you with like, season 1 left you with like so many questions. I cannot imagine having to wait 2 years after that. Crazy. So this is the perfect time to binge it if you have Apple TV. I do want to get into Ben Stiller and why I think it's so genius that he helped make this a reality. Speaking of reality, my favorite movie of his is Reality Bites. This is like a comfort movie for me, like hands down. This was his director debut, I think. I feel like I've always been like a peripheral fan of Ben Stiller's, you know what I mean? But I will say like more recently, I've just been like, oh my God, like he's got it. Like he's got his finger on the pulse. Like the reason I love Reality Bites is it's just such like a slice of life 90s movie. It's so good, and it has incredible actors: Ethan Hawke, Winona Ryder, Steve Zahn, Janine Garofalo. It's like a very, and Ben Stiller's in it too. He's like one of the actors in it. But he directed, there's also really great cameos and stuff. What I love about that movie is it's just sort of like, I would say it's like vignettes in the lives of like Gen Xers. And it takes place in Houston and is actually largely filmed in Houston. I grew up in the Houston area, so definitely like a very nostalgic thing. I'll put a picture right here of the house. So I used to, there's like a central like sort of apartment, and that's like the main setting of the film. Anytime I was in Houston or in Texas visiting family, I would literally, on my way back to the airport, I would literally drive by it and just look at it like a nerd, like a nerd. And it was so funny because I'm so glad I did that though, because they recently tore it down. They recently tore it down, which I was so sad about when my aunt said that to me on Instagram. But it was so funny because one of the last times I went, I actually had my film camera, and so I got out, parked, and I was taking pictures of it, and this lady across the street was taking her trash out and was like, oh, hey. She was like, people do this all the time. Like, was this from like a movie or something? And I was like, oh my god, yeah, like in the 90s, and we were chopping it up or whatever. And the neighborhood has completely changed. Obviously, they tore it down. Completely changed. Like in the movie, there's like these beautiful shots of like from the apartment and like their street. You can see downtown Houston. Like all of that was just blocked. All of that was blocked and stuff. Like you couldn't see the skyline or anything anymore. And it was like all like new buildings and then just that apartment. And I was like, oh god, yeah, it's probably not going to be there for much longer. I just love that movie. It's such a good movie. It's just like a fun watch. I read, like the nerd I am, that I think it was the screenwriter Helen Childress who said this, but she was more so calling it reality bites because it's like bites of reality, like bites of life, like slices of life. And I kind of love that. I love a movie that doesn't have like a really complex plot. I love a more character study type of movie. I love just like a 90s cool rom-com, but not a rom-com, you know what I mean? It's also like very relatable. Like if you're in that phase of life where you're in your 20s and maybe you've just graduated, you know, college or whatever it is, and you don't know what to do with your life or how to make money, this is the movie for you. It'll make you feel so seen, even though it is like, you know, obviously in the 90s, so, you know, life is different now. But oh, my kitty. Yeah, I just really enjoy that film. And then obviously, like, I mean, as a kid, like, I was always aware of Ben Stiller. Like, I saw the Night at the Museum movies in theaters, but I really loved Zoolander as a kid. Oh my god, one of my favorite movies. I showed that to my girlfriend recently and we were dying laughing. I've always loved Zoolander. I was like aware of like the Fockers sort of like universe, but like haven't watched all of them, to be honest. That's on my list. I think it's really cool, and I've talked about this on TikTok before. I think comedic actors are severely underutilized and under like respected. Like I feel like, I'm not saying it's easier, but it's kind of like if you're a dramatic actor, that's awesome, but can you also do comedy? Versus like I feel like comedic actors can sort of access like that full range of emotion, and comedic actors can really tap into like that deep seriousness or sadness that is required, as well as being really funny, and that's a very like underrated skill. So I think that he is someone who can do both like extremely well. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty is also on my list. People have been telling me to watch this for years. It's a crime I haven't seen it. But yeah, these are my initial Severance and Ben Stiller thoughts. I will say if you are a filmmaking nerd, Severance is a great show for you. If you are someone who is working a job that you hate, been there, I think you will find a lot of like solace and maybe even comfort in this show, although it makes you really uneasy. Like, that's kind of the point, but I found it kind of comforting in a weird way, so maybe you will too. Yeah, thanks for watching. I will definitely be making another one of these once I watch the full season 2 when it's out, and encourage you to go watch it on Apple TV+. This is not sponsored.